Hi guys, I'm on my way home from work. I figured I was listening to podcast Daddy Issues with Tony Baker and Keon Poley and if I want to sit here and take 20 minutes to try to grab everybody's name on top of my head. Anyway, it's about 5 guys. Anyway, one of the questions that they asked was, have you ever had, if your child had a fight with a sibling, let me turn on the radio. If your child had a fight with a sibling, your brother, like if your son had a fight with your brother, whose side are you taking? And I found it just jogged her memories. It jogged their memory for me. There you go. That I ended up having a fight with my grandfather when I was about 19. So I'm 39 now. I had a fight with my grandfather when I was 19, and it's not a story that I'm proud of and not one that I actually want to share with the whole world, but I left a comment in that podcast comment section. It was like, I fought my grandfather, and I'm like, but I was driving, and so I didn't elaborate. So in case somebody comes to me and be like, oh, well, what happened? How'd you end up fighting your grandfather? Rather than me texting a whole story about what happened, here's a video. So this particular day, I was getting up to clean up. My husband, who was then my boyfriend, was coming over, and Saturday mornings I usually clean up the whole house anyway, top to bottom. We had a 3-bedroom house. I lived with my grandmother. My grandfather lived in the basement. It was a whole to-do. On this Saturday, my grandmother was at church. She was a deaconess plus the cook and all of that stuff. So she was at church that day, and whether she knew or not, I was going to clean. I do it every Saturday. I did it every Saturday, rather. So I'm cleaning my room, her room, my brother and sister room, the bathroom that's there, the hallway, down the stairs, the living room, dining room, kitchen, and the bathroom on the first floor. My grandfather lived in the basement. I must note that my grandfather has passed away a couple years ago, so I'm not trying to talk bad and whatever about him. So anyway, so usually when I'm cleaning up, like most people do, they got their music blasting, blah blah blah. But I knew that my grandmother had gone to church, but I didn't know whether my grandfather was home or not. So what I did was I went and checked the yard to see if he was parked in the driveway or in front of the house. I didn't see his van. At the time, he drove a green van. So I didn't see his van, so I assumed that he wasn't home. I didn't go down to the basement to call and see if he was down there or not. But whatever. I'm like, if he's here, then his van would be here. So I just proceeded. It was around 9 something in the morning. Put the music on. It probably was a little bit later than that. I'm not even going to tell you no lie. It might have been 10:30, something like that. And I had the music on loud. I had the radio on. I didn't put on any specific CDs, because it's 20 years ago. I was 19, so it was CD time. So I didn't have any specific CDs in there or anything like that. I just had on whatever was on the radio, and I've already cleaned my room, I already did the top floor, and I'm sweeping down the stairs or whatever, and I've hit the living room at this point. So now I'm going in because we had a long hallway before you enter the house, actually. So I'm in that area. I don't know what you call it, but because it had a door in front of it. It had a door. It was the front door. Then you had the hallway with the coat closet, and then another door, and then you enter the house. Actually enter the house after that. So I was in there cleaning up or whatever, sweeping and getting all of the coats and stuff that was probably thrown down, or just organizing in the closet. And I hear my grandfather come upstairs, and he's like, "What you doing up here?" I was like, "Oh, I'm cleaning up." He was like, "Why you got the music up so loud?" I'm sorry, I didn't know you was home. He was like, "Well, I'm here, and you disturbing me from sleeping." I'm like, "I'm sorry, I didn't know you were home." I'm like, "I'll turn the music down. I'm almost finished cleaning up." But he kept on going on. He was like, "It's about time that you clean up. This house is always a mess, this and that." And I'm like, "What do you mean this house is always a mess?" Now, quick backstory. The reason why my grandfather lived in the basement is because my grandparents had separated. I don't know at what point, because I lived with my grandmother from I was 6 years old until I was 19 when she passed away. So no, I wasn't 19 when this happened. Actually, I was 17 when the incident happened with me and my grandfather. No, I wasn't, because I was going on my senior trip that year. I was 18, turning 19. Because yes, I was 18, turning 19. Yes, my grandmother passed away that year. Lord have mercy. Jesus Christ, she got sick fast too. Anyway, sorry for that. Brain fog. Jesus. Backstory: my grandfather lived in the basement because my grandparents had separated at some point. I don't remember. I don't know why. So he came back because he ended up having a child who was, she was at 7 years old at the time, and maybe she was about 4. Was she in first? Yeah, she was like 5. She was like kindergarten, preschool age. And he came back to live with us. I'm not sure if it was because he couldn't live where he was living anymore, or he just needed help raising the daughter. Neither here nor there, that's whatever. So anyway, that's why he was in the basement, because he just wanted her, like, they set up the basement to where, she had her own room, and it was like an apartment down there. She was in one room, he was in another room. We already had it was a 4-bedroom house, but 3 bedrooms were upstairs, 1 was in the basement. So he set it up real nice too, bathroom, whole shebang, whatever, nice apartment in the basement. And so what I told him, I was like, this house is not always dirty. I'm like, you have your daughter come upstairs and she makes a mess, and you do nothing about the mess, and you leave it for me to clean, because at the time I have a little brother and sister. Brother's 3 years younger than me, sister's 7 years younger than me. And she so I had my older brother, who's since passed away, lived there as well, but he was never there. So the only person that was going to clean up was me. I had a job and I was still in high school. So you're going to catch a good cleanup on a Saturday. I'm not doing that every day. And I had a whole job. Anyway, I'm like, you ain't... So now we arguing about the fact that the house is always messy and that his daughter comes up here and messes it up. I don't remember what he said to me. And I said something back to him. And he just ran to try to choke me. And I'm like, choke me? Now look, you see my neck now? I'm fat now, but I wasn't then. I was like 130 pounds, real slim and cute. And so he came to choke me, and I just like grabbed his hands and flipped him on the couch. And he was in shock, but I was very, very strong. When I was in high school, obviously now I don't, but when I was in high school, I took weightlifting classes, because that was the only gym class that was available to me at the time. I guess my guidance counselor forgot to, I gotta tell another story about my high school, my guidance counselor, because when I see him, I think I might punch him in his eye, because he did me dirty. But anyway, I guess he so I took weightlifting. I was already naturally strong. I had a lot of men in my, boys growing up in my family. So, I was like the one girl around like 4 or 5 different boys in my age. And then my little cousin was born. She's a year. Is she a year younger than me? I don't know. Anyway, but she was real pretty and girly. I was tomboyish, so I was strong, kind of, bulky and all that. So when I flipped my grandfather on the couch, he was like, "Oh, who you done?" Now he want to fight, and I'm like, "Grandpa, leave me alone because I'm young." I'm like, "I'm young and I could do this. You not old and you too young. You too old to deal with me." But he kept on going, yapping off at the mouth, and it was frustrating. And I'm trying to respect my elders, because I do respect my elders, and I would have never and it was so out of my character. Like, maybe I would have cursed him out, but not even really, because I don't like to talk to older people all kind of crazy, and especially because I live with my grandmother. If I could talk to my grandmother crazy, then I could talk to anybody crazy, but I've never talked to my grandmother crazy, so that was never going to happen. But anyway, I had a low level of respect for him anyway, and I guess that's how it ended up happening. Let me roll up my window because I kind of feel like you can hear the wind blowing. Anyway, let me roll the other one. So we going back and forth. He comes to try to choke me again. No, we arguing back and forth, and I'm trying to hurry up and clean up the house, and we arguing back and forth, and now we went from the living room to the dining room, and he's still going. I'm like, "Grandpa, why don't you just go back downstairs and go to sleep? You just said you don't feel well. Like, why are you here bothering me?" And he's like, "Oh, you disrespectful and this and that and blah, 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 blah." And he came and tried to choke me again. YouTube, stop playing with me. Stop playing with me. Okay? So, again, I grabbed him by his wrist, and I'm like, "Chill." So now we tussling, and he won't stop. So he didn't have his hands around my neck, but he had the hand. I can't do the gestures because I'm driving, but he come with the gestures again, and I grabbed the wrist, and so now we tussling in the dining room. And he won't quit. Yo, he really wouldn't quit. So the only way I could get him to stop was to flip him again. So I flipped him onto the dining room table. And I'm like, "Yo, Grandpa, chill, because I'm gonna hurt you in here." I'm like, just leave me alone. He gets mad. He gets off the table, runs downstairs to his apartment. No. He doesn't go downstairs to his apartment. I'm lying. I leave the area and go upstairs. And I'm like, this guy's bugging. So I called my brother, the one that passed away. He's 3 years older than me. And I'm like, "Yo, you gotta come home because Grandpa trying to fight me and I'm gonna hurt him or whatever. I don't want to have to, whatever." So he was like, "I bet I'll be on my way in a bit." So after I called my brother, my grandfather gets on the phone and calls my grandmother on the family line. So he calls her at church. At this time, cell phones were not popular, so she did not have a cell phone. He calls her at church to tell her that me and him were fighting in the house. So she gets on the phone. No, I see him on the phone. I'm like, "Who you on the phone with?" "I'm on the phone with Agnes." That's my grandmother's name. "I'm on the phone with your grandmother." I'm like, you on our phone?" He's like, Don't you tell me when I could. I'm like, "Oh, no. You're not talking to my grandmother on the phone bill that she pays." So I went upstairs in my grandmother's room where the main line was, and I unplugged the phone cord. And I'm like, "You want to talk to anybody about what's going on here? You go down to your damn basement and you go call her from there. You don't come calling nobody on this line about what the fuck you did." So, oh, you disrespectful, blah, blah, blah. He goes down in the basement. Now he gets his phone. He out of breath. He tired as all I don't know what. All of them, look, my hair is a whole mess. I don't care. All the while he's sick. I don't know that he's sick though. Like he said, I'm not feeling well, but I don't know that he's sick. I'm just thinking, we in like June? Like who's sick? Like allergies, whatever. Whatever. Anyway, it wasn't in June. It was like May, something like that. April. It wasn't too late. Anyway, so he gets on the phone, he calls her, and so I call her at church now, because after he gets on the phone, I call her at church. And I'm like, Grandma, you need to talk to him because he wilding in here, blah, blah. She's like, why are you fighting him? I'm like, he tried to choke me. I'm not about to let him choke me, and I'm trying to clean the house. I'm like, because usually, like, if I know my grandmother's, at the time, if I knew my grandmother was going to be at church all day on Sundays, or like Saturday, I would clean up the whole house, because she's an old lady. She ain't got no business cleaning up the whole house. During the week, she would try to keep up, but on the weekend, I would just try to pull my part, because I worked at McDonald's at the time, and so I worked Monday through Friday after work, and I had school, and I had my boyfriend, so I had my priorities. So on Saturdays, I would dedicate Saturday from whatever time I wake up until I finish cleaning up to clean up the house. And so I would at least give 4 hours out the day to clean up the whole house, dishes, everything. And so she knew that. And then on Sundays, like if I knew she was going to be at church all day, then I would make dinner. I would cook. So, she knew that she didn't have to worry too much when it came to me. So I'm telling her what happened, and she just was like, excuse me, by the way, I just burped. So she's like, oh, I'll be home soon. So she had one of her church friends drive her home. Probably took like an hour. He's still going back and forth about, oh, I'm disrespectful, I ain't got no business. But I'm like, yo, you don't ever try to put your hands on me. So now I'm yelling at him. I'm like, do you know how old I am? And do you know how old you are? You don't try to put your hands on no young person as old as you are. Beat your ass in here. What's wrong with you? So my grandmother's sitting here laughing like, but I don't realize like the whole situation. Anyway, I'm not proud of this story. I'm just telling it because I posted a comment. Needless, well, not needless, but after the fact, I found out that my grandfather had kidney issues and all of that stuff. He was on dialysis, but he was been going through that. And look, I'm red because it's hot. He been had those issues. I just didn't know about them, and my family didn't like to tell people what was going on with everybody anyway. So it is what it is. I didn't know, and my grandmother made me apologize to him, but she didn't really care whether I apologized or not. He just was, I guess his ego was bruised because I overtook him. Also, another note, I found out later on in life that my grandfather, he was not the nicest person to my grandmother, if you know what I mean. And so the running joke within the family is, Asia, you remember when you beat up Eddie? And it's funny in a way, but I'm not proud of it, because everybody is happy that somebody finally handed him himself. Because he would always try to like fight my grandmother, and like one day me and my brother were coming from the same direction. We weren't together, but we ended up on the block together. And I'm like, there's police in front of my house. What's going on over there? So my brother was like, oh, I'm gonna come back in an hour and when the police leave. Now I don't know why my brother bounced, but whatever. When I get in the house, the kids in the house are crying. And I'm like, why are y'all crying? Look, my son riding the bike around the block. I'm going to beat both of them up. I'm going to beat him up. Because what he doing out here riding the bike around the block like that? Anyway, my siblings were crying. And when I came in the house, they were crying because my grandfather had slapped my grandmother. Now this is after my grandfather moved back to the house. This ain't like years ago and I'm young and I don't know. Like, I'm old enough to be like, nigga, you put your hands on my grandmother? So when my brother, the one that passed away, came back in the house, he was like, why the police was here? I was like, grandpa slapped grandma in the face. What? So my grandmother had to calm my brother down because actually when my brother came in the house, my grandfather left immediately when he saw him. So Ali, my brother's name was Ali. Ali said to my grandmother, what happened? And she told him, and he flew out the house looking for my grandfather. He was gonna beat the shit out of him. Anyway, so the fact that me and my grandfather had a fight, it's like a running joke in the family because you finally, somebody finally put hands and feet on him. I mean, I only kind of like shook him up a little bit. I ain't punch him or nothing like that, because like I said, I'm not disrespectful, but you ain't gonna choke me. And that's skinny Asia and that's fat Asia too. Like, you just not. One thing though I can say, I mean, I ended up apologizing to him. He didn't forgive me, whatever, I don't care. But I apologized to him because we were going to our senior trip and I wanted my boyfriend to come over, who is now my husband. I wanted to kind of have like a couple's day before we all went away. So three of my friends were we were all dating people. And so we had the guys come over to my house and we chilled for the day or whatever. Anyway, I apologized to him so that way I could have company. Otherwise, I wouldn't have apologized. Last part of this story is, I think that was the last part of the story. Oh, I was going to say this. The one thing I was hot-headed when I was younger. I know better now as an adult. To relax, because it's not that serious. But on top of relax because it's not that serious, I don't argue with people. I don't try to get into no altercations with people, because I know that, or I feel like an argument can lead to somebody dying, and I prefer to keep it moving, because I have children and a family, and we've already experienced death in the worst ways. Two of my siblings were murdered, and my niece along with my sister. So, my brother was murdered, the one Ali, Danielle, Crystal murdered, my grandfather. So that's death in the worst way. Then my grandfather that I'm talking about, that he passed away. My cousin passed away like a few months before my grandfather died. He died in a motorcycle accident. My dad died when I was young. Like, I prefer to just, we don't need to argue. It's not that serious. You got it. You know what I'm saying? So I just try to keep my cool as much as I can. I mean, I'm not tick tick boom anymore. I do my very, very best, but don't just don't put your hand. Don't. If I feel threatened by you, as far as like if you're yelling at me too hard, I have to walk away or we're gonna fight, because I feel like you being too aggressive to the point where I think you want to fight me, so I'm gonna walk away. If you flint, there's different ways about how I feel about fighting and stuff. So I'm not old, but I'm very grown, 39, and I'm not doing that. Not today, not yesterday, not last week. Maybe when I was much, much younger. I'm not doing it tomorrow or anytime in the future. I don't got time to be fighting. I'm not. That's one story that I'm not proud of, and maybe I'll come back tomorrow on another post with another past story that I'm not proud of. Anyway, bye YouTube.